I'll let you know once it's pushed over. Okay, we're live.
Are we live?
We are live.
This is great. Well, welcome everybody. Ani bonjour. Mazanapkan gaya go anabe. Indigenous cause. Gonna be gukshabiga is what and donjaba. My name is Isaac Murdoch. I'm from Serpent River First Nation, and I'd like to welcome you to this evening's launch of this incredible resource that involves stars and star knowledge and beyond. And so we've invited all of the people, or most of the people that were involved in creating this resource and putting in the knowledge to make this resource happen. And they're here with us tonight. So this is really exciting. And so during this information session, during this launch, what we're going to be learning is how to use this resource, who are the people involved, and why is it so important to learn about stars. And we've seeked out like the best of the best that's out there. And we're really proud to have an incredible lineup of people that participated in this resource. It's like breathtaking. And so this all started years ago because of Jody Williams, who is like the nerd of stars. Jody Williams was like, come on, let's go look at the stars. Like she would literally, like when we were having culture camps and stuff like that in the early days, she'd be like, come on, let's go. It's like, it's 2:30. This we're gonna see this asteroid. And you know, it was just so for years and years, Jody has always been building on this idea of creating resources for young people to learn about the stars. And so this is really the Jody's mastermind working to make all of this possible. And she's such an amazing person too. During this launch, we're going to be understanding again how we're going to use the resource. So wait for that. That's going to come towards the end. And there's going to be a question and answer period as well, where we're going to have Tina and Tessa moderating that for us. But in the meantime, let's listen to some incredible speakers talk about, why this is so important, and also their contribution or experiences that they had while, putting this resource together. And so the first one that we're going to go talk to is Hohepa. Hohepa is this incredible, like, Maori knowledge keeper with like tattoos on his face, and like he's like an encyclopedia of anything that has to do with New Zealand or so-called New Zealand. And so Hohepa is an incredible person who runs a school, has in-depth knowledge about the star systems in that part of the world. And so at this time, without further ado, Hohepa, you are on. Tell us, how was your experiences? How was it being a part of this resource?
Tēnā tātou, tēnā no hoki koe te tuakana Isaac, nau anō I whakatūwhera nei tō tātou hui tēnei rā. Ko te mana ko nui ia, e tauwhiro mai tātou I raro I hoi nā manaakitanga o tō tātou kaiana, ko ia anō hoki te timatana me te whakaotina ki rona I a tātou. Ko ai tēnei, ko Hohepa hei taku ingoa, he uri tēnei no roto te whakatōhia, te whānau apanui Ngāti Parau, te aitanga hauiti me te aitanga mahaki, no reira no te tairāwhiti tēnei. My name is Hohepa Hei. I hail from the tribes of Whakatōhia, te whānau apanui Ngāti Parau, te aitanga hauiti and te aitanga mahaki, which are tribes on the eastern side of the North Island of New Zealand. Since we last met, Isaac, I was, yes, a principal of a school. I have now returned to my tribal lands as the education manager for my people, working for my tribe of Te Whakatōhia. And yeah, that's me in a nutshell. So getting right into it. Star knowledge, where to start? Basically, the beauty of this particular initiative has been amazing in the sense that through Indigenous star knowledge, we were able to connect all our nations together. And the interesting part of it is that us being on one side of the planet, you all being on the other side, and sharing our traditions, our whakapapa, our narratives, was amazing to see the similarities in our stories and our traditions that we still hold today. Through colonisation, the revival of Indigenous star knowledge hasn't been so evident here in New Zealand, especially in regards to education. Indigenous star knowledge actually been recognised and respected by educators in Aotearoa at this present time is where we're at. So we're going through huge changes here. The Ministry of Education in New Zealand are pushing the New Zealand Histories kaupapa project, which allows our people to share our stories, our traditions in schools and allowing it to be recognised, and also working towards a qualification for our students in the secondary school sector as well. One of the beauties that I've always liked about Indigenous star knowledge is the importance it still holds today, and allowing our people to recognise the importance of Indigenous star knowledge. The revival that we've had here, and particularly, is when we look at the lunar calendar, or to us, the maramataka. It was only referred to in regards to gathering or cultivating food, but there's a lot more to it than just food. Being able to see the importance of the maramataka in regard to the different lunar phases of the moon throughout the month, and particularly being able to identify the high, the low energy phases of the month to better support our people, well, ourselves as educators in the education space, better to support our students, our families, our elders, our youth, throughout the different phases of the maramataka throughout the month. So that's been one of the big things that we've been pushing at the moment. Healthy living, healthy eating, yes, definitely food gathering, but also sharing the stories that have been handed down through our whakapapa, through our genealogy, but also seeing how similar those stories, those narratives are to those of you over in Te Mautere o Te Honumeki. So yeah, it's definitely a huge kaupapa. Jody, e kore rawa ngā mihi e mimiti noa ki runga i a koe. I can't thank you enough. Yes, you were the glue. You were the one that brought us all together. Having our sister Dana from America, our Navajo whānau, and also having Isaac and the rest of our whānau in Canada, and then having us all sharing our narratives from our respective tribes or our respective iwi, and then to have the beautiful Whaia Daniela in the mix, to also join us together and to share and to also provide the evidence to our narratives, and being able to relate back to it and through a scientific perspective as well has been absolutely amazing. So this journey has been one I will never ever forget, and one journey that I will always be grateful for. Is my 5 minutes up, Isaac? Because I know you've still got 9 others.
Well, we certainly, we love to hear you. So if you could just say some final words, that would be great.
Final words is probably, don't be shy to speak up and to share those stories. Don't be shy to push those boundaries and to express and to share our narratives, our stories, our traditions in all spaces, not just education. Make it general conversation in the home, on the street, wherever, because it's not until we actually do that and we actually make it a part of our daily way of life and conversation, that is actually is going to get out there and it's actually become a reality for everybody, and it's going to go back to being a norm, being the natural norm for us as a people. And because of that, Indigenous star knowledge is the very thing that connects us together as a people. So that it's not just about stars, it's about whakapapa as well. It's about genealogy. We all descend from the stars, and those things, that whakapapa, that genealogy is what connects us all together as a people, no matter which side of the earth we're on. So kia kaha tātou.
Well, thank you so much, Ohepa. You know, it's always an honor to have you, and your language is so beautiful. Your tattoos are incredible, and it'll be really nice to see you again.
It's easier to talk in Maori than English, so.
You did amazing. You did amazing. So our next person that we'd like to introduce is somebody that I'm very fond of, and I've had the pleasure of meeting. And Daniela reminds me of a superhero, and you're going to understand why I say this, because she looks like a superhero. She's kind of like, I could see her like coming in during this crisis and like, you know, like saving the day with her brains and her superpowers. And she works, and believe it or not, she works for NASA. And so she is like super intelligent. She's smart. She's has this really in-depth knowledge about stars, the universe, the galaxy. And so it's with great honor to bring Daniela on to share with us her contribution to the resource and any experiences that she might have had. So Daniela, the sky is yours.
Aw. Thanks, Isaac. Gosh, golly, that was a sweet introduction. The day I look like a superhero and act like a superhero, that's going to be a good day. I look forward to that day. Maybe sometime this spring. We'll see how it goes. So good evening, everyone, and hello to all of my friends and relatives here with me tonight, with us all tonight. A special hello and respect to our elder Wilfred, who is here with us. Wilfred, good to see you, sir. So I just wanted to say, well, I guess I should say a few words about myself. So I'm Daniela Scalise, and I've been with this collaboration for a few years. I'm an educator with NASA's astrobiology program, which is all about where did we come from? Are we alone? Is there life elsewhere out there? So it's been a great pleasure and very humbling to work with that material. Oh, I'm not sure where to start, except with all things, reaching for you, Jody, and thanking you for your leadership and your passion and your energy and bringing us all together. It's been a wonderful experience, a humbling experience to contribute to this resource. As you were saying, Hohepa, we've all had the chance in building it together to see how all the different tellings and ideas and concepts and knowledges have found themselves in the same space at the same time, and how they speak to each other and how they resonate with each other and reinforce each other. And the beauty that comes out of that is something to behold. So for all of you out there who are planning to use the resource, I think you're in for something really special. And I encourage you to open your hearts, minds to happen where magic is. A tremendous honor to represent Western scientific thoughts and concepts and ideas into this and see how they resonate too. You know, as I think we all would say, Western science thinks more of itself than it probably should and tends to show up with the dominant energy of colonization and Western culture in general. And I hope that as you use this resource, you will see that and find yourself practicing more humility when you're working with the Western scientific material, because it's the youngest sibling here in the room, and it's just finding some things out that Indigenous cultures have known since time immemorial. Sure, Western science has some great tools and, instruments and fun things that we can learn good things from. But it's how we present that material that's really important. And I think the more humility we can practice when we're bringing all these things together, the better, and the more we'll all learn and grow from it. So I thank you for the opportunity to be with you tonight, and the opportunity to be part of this resource and this wonderful group and family. So back over to you, Isaac.
Well, thank you so much. You're so eloquent in your delivery. And I'm just dying to know a fun fact about the universe. Can you tell us something about the universe that we might not know?
Can I tell you? One of the things that I think is kind of fun is that the astronomers, when they theorize about the first stars that came into being, their idea is that the universe didn't sort of have things in it for a while. And then the stars were kind of the first things that came on the scene. They formed, and their theories about the first stars were that they were huge, that they were these giant, massive stars. We have a diversity of types of stars in our universe now: small ones, medium ones, big ones, red ones, yellow ones, blue ones. But the astronomers think that the first ones were huge and really hot. And they burned their big selves out really fast. They lived, how do they say? They lived fast and they died young. So I think that's a fun fact. And the reason why I think, theorize that is because they were responsible for making the first elements that we know of, like that are in us, like the first carbon and the first, nitrogen and the first oxygen. Those things weren't in the universe before. So they had to kind of churn that out in order to get things going in terms of the evolution of the universe. So those are our ancestors, our big, big sisters and great grandmothers who made it all happen for us. And the contents of their bellies are inside our bodies right now. So thanks, Grandma. Thanks for being bold and big and living hard and going for it.
Wow. Okay. She doesn't disappoint. I'll tell you, Daniela, thank you so much. It's such a great honor to have you with us tonight. And it's always a pleasure to hear you. And the knowledge that you carry it's so valuable. And so thank you for being a part of this. Our next person that's going to speak doesn't really need an introduction because everybody in the whole universe knows this person. His name is Wilfred Buck. He's just an incredible knowledge keeper. To me, Wilfred is a symbol of hope for our people because of his spiritual knowledge, his insight, his culture, his language, and how he persistently keeps working for the people all of the time. And it's somebody that I consider to be a great leader for our people. And so, of course, we'd like to ask Wilfred Buck to join us and to talk about his experiences with Lessons and Beyond, about the stars, and how he got involved. And he's such an interesting person, Wilfred Buck. He wrote a book. It's incredible. So Wilfred, jump on in and do what you do, because it's amazing. You're amazing.
Thank you. Thank you, Isaac. Nashe Ndutemana, Wilfred Buck Nitishnigashin, Napaskiakni Noche, Nitamagin to them. Greetings, my relatives. My name is Wilfred Buck, originally from Napaskiak Cree Nation. And I'm coming to you today from Calgary, this TELUS Science Center in Calgary. And I'm very honored to be allowed to share some of this time with my awesome colleagues, my knowledgeable knowledge holders out there, and bringing forward this new methodology, bringing forward this new idea, bringing forward these new lessons that people can utilize and help the world understand that it wasn't only Romans and Greeks that decided to go outside at night and look at that night sky, but every culture on the face of the earth did that. And every culture on the face of the earth have their own constellations, they have their own names, they have their own sacred tellings, they have their own connections, they have their own, instructions that were handed down. And the way this knowledge was brought forward was, from my understanding, my people is using methodologies that are slightly different from the normal scientific process, the steps in the scientific process. We also have every culture has that scientific process, and it's slightly different. But for my people in Año, and I know for a fact that for a lot of Indigenous people, the way we look at the world is through a spiritual lens, is through a holistic lens, and this is what really differs, and really, I guess, for a lot of people that have been educated in the Western education system and looking at the qualitative and quantitative knowledge and the processes that they come to understand knowledge, that my people see it totally different. And that's where I guess people are at odds. And we have to come to realize that we are all human beings, and we all have prior knowledge, and we all observe, and we can all predict, and we can all theorize. And but where it differs is that my people see things in a holistic sense. My people see things in a spiritual sense. My people see things through a process called dreams. Poamiak, my people call them. And these dreams are very important in my people's understanding, and in a lot of Indigenous people's understanding. The dreams are very, very important. Dreams give us hope, they give us direction, they give us guidance, they give us insight, to give us understanding, they give us revelation, to give us all these things. And they give us infinite possibility. And we're told this. And so everybody dreams, everybody in the universe dreams, everybody in Earth dreams. That's the common factor what we have with every culture in the face of the earth. All the scientists, we all dream. It doesn't matter if you don't know your dream, you can't remember your dreams, you're constantly dreaming. And for my people, we look at that in a holistic sense where things are not compartmentalized. And hopefully we can bring some of these ideas forward with this new initiative that Jody and Isaac have been working on. This is an awesome tool that educators can use and begin to open their worldview, broaden their worldview, and have people understand that there's other ways of coming to knowledge. And every culture in the face of the earth has a depth of knowledge, has an understanding, a thought process, has a philosophy, and has a way that they do science. Every culture does that. It's just that a lot of the nomenclature that scientists use, it wasn't applied, but still, it's science and it's still applicable. And a lot of the theories and understandings that our people have are very applicable today as they were 1,000 years ago. And so I'd just like to share that and say you have a really good opportunity to broaden the horizons and listen to Anishinaabe, Dakota, Lakota, to Inenyo, to Siksika even, understandings about the sky, and our brothers and sisters from all over the world bring forward this knowledge. And it's amazing, and it brings us together. It doesn't take us apart. It brings us together, and it makes us move forward in a different way. Whenever we hear a different understanding, we broaden our worldview. We broaden our perspectives. We see infinite possibilities. And so these are some of the things that I see when this awesome educational tool that's being put forward is being put to use. So I want to thank you very much for allowing me this time. Thank you, Isaac. Thank you, Jody. Jody, you're amazing.
Well, thank you very much, Wilford. And it's such an honor to have you come join us tonight. I know that you're always busy. You're constantly helping the people in some way or another. You're a great inspiration. You're a great mentor. And we send you many blessings in your travels, and we wish that you're safe and well always. So thank you very much, Wilfred Buck. And I will just continue on what Wilfred said about Jody. Jody actually is amazing. She is incredible. So just a big shout out to Jody. Our next person that we're going to bring in is from way down south, from where I am. I'm from the Great Lakes, and now we're going to be bringing in somebody from down south. And Dana is an incredible knowledge keeper. She works with language revitalization. She works with, bringing back the culture. She's such a wealth of knowledge, and and I've spoken to her, and I wish I could speak to her more because she's so incredibly gifted with knowledge, and it's just a great pleasure to have here. So Dana, please welcome, come join us and let us know what your experiences were making the resource, how things are, and just talk a little bit about, how things were for you.
John, Jonathan, Isaac, Jody. I really appreciate your wonderful. You're so inviting. Every one of these people who are here today are feeling comfortable, and we feel good about sharing what we know. So that takes a special kind of personality and a kind of openness and love, which you have shared with us. So John which means it is good, and we are thankful. She Dana Desiderio Dashajane, Nanasht Ajan Shle, my Deshkijni Bushichin, Ashihe Dashache, Purachine Dashanale, Akut Awa Sun Shle, Gadasakist, Ayasa A Dana Sha. I have 4 clans, and those are my 4 clans. The place specifically where I'm from and where I roam, that's called Gadasakij, which translated means spotted oak. My people are Dene. We are of the Four Corners region, and we come from 4 worlds below. Now, my part of my teaching is explaining how Navajo Haji Ne Hanet, the emergent stories, they have this history from the very beginning of this universe all the way to today. And what I do in the classroom is I make connections. I help students put this ancient knowledge, even though the knowledge is still alive, is still current, we make that applicable to current technology, current science, technology, engineering, and STEM. We also make it applicable to our daily lifestyle. Like, just because this is old stories from our grandmothers and our grandfathers doesn't mean that it's not applicable today. So my work, I am an assistant professor at Navajo Technical University. I teach several different classes, some of those being the net philosophy of education, some of those being reading and writing classes, to teach the language, some of those being leadership classes. So leadership, language, and culture, they are connected as one. And so I teach an array of all of these classes, even into contemporary Navajo politics, identity, and leadership. And where it really gets important is to this identity. So Navajos and other indigenous students, they need to know that they're meant to be here. They need to know that they're important. And our Hajine Hanet, our origin stories, tell us that from the very beginning, from the very inception of this universe, that there was a design and there was a plan. It was purposefully constructed. Everything, the way from the directions, from the way that the sun rises, to the way it moves overhead, to the way that it sets, to the way that it becomes dark again, even the movement of the seasons from spring to summer to fall to winter, all of these cycles were designed so that one day there would be a place where 5-fingered human beings us, the human beings, would have not only a good place to live, but also a good way of living. And it was designed from when there was nothing. Our stories talk about the first world, the Black world, when there was nothing but gas, dust, and mist. Now, Daniela, my colleague, my good friend, the person who uplifted me and helped me develop my knowledge, she's an astrobiologist at NASA. She helped me put together my own knowledge of teaching from, what I've learned from my grandmothers and my own research. She helped me put this together. So it's not just that too. It's not, there's more. There's so much more. But then that's what the resource will can start to unfold for you. But these gas and dust, from a Navajo way of knowing, there was a light that gathered, and that was the beginning. And this light that gathered had intelligence, and it also had divine love and genuine humility. And from that very instant, there became a plan, an idea, a mission that something would happen and would be good. And all of this structure, even though Navajo knowledge, Navajo philosophy is so complex, it's also very simple. And it was meant that we would have everything we need to live, from light to moisture to air to dirt substance and pollen, to having a good way of thinking about our own selves, from thinking to planning to living and to reflecting and protecting. It's all in a cycle that is a natural cycle that goes with the movement of the sun. So in my work, with Daniela, with Juan Carlos, who's also part of our group, with Jody, with Isaac, we have explored a lot of the ways we bridge these very specific sciences to natural indigenous knowledges. So in the past, there's a thing called NASA Navajo partnership, where K through 12 curriculum has been developed that directly bridges these and also adheres to state standards of education. So the next project, what I'm working with at Navajo Tech and also in partnership with Harvard University, is we are sending our students to go explore the most advanced technologies and bring those kinds of technological knowledge back and teach their peers. And at the same time, find bridges from our own ways of knowing. That way we can empower our future generations of scientists, because Navajo, is a natural thinker, and Sakes is the epitome. Knowledge is the epitome, it is divine for Navajo people. So we want to empower the next generation of thinkers, of scientists. Navajo is a natural scientist, and we want every single indigenous child to know they are natural scientists. They already have this knowledge inside of them. Their home, where they come from, their stories are full of that rich knowledge. So, that's what we hope and we pray for. And that's what we're working toward with this grant that NTU, Navajo Technical University, and Harvard University are partnering together. So over this 6-year grant, we're hoping to produce more of this curriculum for K through 12. So it's very exciting time. It's lovely. Like I'm a geologist at heart, and so I think about the timeline and the development of the Earth and development of evolution on Earth, and then I know my own stories according to my grandparents and how they told us about evolution of life on Earth, and I put these together and it makes sense, and it brings to me a greater identity, a greater knowledge of who I am and where I'm coming from, and a greater understanding of my place in the universe. I know I'm a child of the universe. I'm a grandchild of the universe. And I want every single one of my students in my classrooms and anyone else that I talk to in the communities, that they also are children of the universe. They're meant to be here. This universe is by design. It is purposefully made, and you're meant to be here. You're important. You're a holy person. You're a human being. So yeah, that's what I do. And I'm so grateful to be here, with such wonderful culture teachers and educators. It's a wonderful place to be. So I welcome you all to utilize this this resource, it might help you grow. It might help you learn to know yourself better, and that's important. Thank you.
Well, I'm not quite sure what to say after that. I didn't want that to end. Like, what do you say after that? Nothing. So thank you for inspiring us. And you should have your own show, like you should do this every Friday night so we can all tune in, like when you're jumping around, I was jumping around, like when you're telling me that we're children of the stars in the universe, you just touched me somehow. I don't know, you're really cool, you know that, eh? Like you got some serious mojo going on there.
Thank you, Isaac.
Your enthusiasm is infectious, let me tell you. But thank you so much. It was a great honor to have you, come on and be a part of this. And, I remember years ago when the elders used to talk about how we come from the stars. And I always thought that was just something that the Anishinaabe thought. And as I got to meet other people and as my start to travel around, I started to realize that so many other nations had the same sort of creation story. And it's just beautiful. And the way that you spell things out is amazing. So thank you so much for being with us. You are incredible. You are a shining star. Okay, so the next people that we have on are also incredible. And they're like two comets, just scooting across the sky. And I've had the honor to meet them and a couple of times. And they're really special people. They're knowledge carriers, they're language carriers, and also they carry a wealth of just goodness and compassion. And so at this time, I'd like to bring on Doug and Kathy, who are just extraordinary people. They're Anishinaabe. And so Doug and Kathy, you are on stage. So come and join us and tell us, how were your experiences working with this? Why are stars so important? And also, what message do we have for the kids?
Bonjour, Zobnesik digo, Begomon Kutuk and digo, Kagashwashik and digo, most dotem. I just wanted to say that we were gifted this knowledge. We carry this inherent knowledge, and I believe that these resources will help pull that inherent knowledge out of our people. I'll turn it over to Doug.
Bonjour. Almost goes on to the cast, Mesco, you knew in the Nigan, the go, Macondo with them, Onigaming, give you on Jaba. Where get us in the main way, Pawanegi, she got up Chizunga at the Mima, I want to say. I just introduced myself and my Anishinaabe name, my English name is Doug Sinclair. I come from Ojibwe of Onigaming. And we talked about the stars and all these wonderful people and this superhero, and oh man, this is great. And our brother Carlos and everybody. It's just awesome to have everybody in one Zoom meeting and live to boot. It's great to have this knowledge and to have this knowledge readily available for our youth to just zoom in and go on their little tablets and check this resource out. To have this knowledge like that, it's just going to blow their minds where they come from and how they got here. And these stories are all over the world. On the other side of the world, we our similarities even to the water ceremony. It's our women that talk for that. And Hohepa, we were invited to a ceremony back a few years ago where we went to a water gathering, and it was the women that did the ceremony, and he had to ask for permission to be able to speak to that. And the similarities are so great, like our cultures, because like everybody's been saying, that's where we come from. We come from the stars, and it's just amazing to listen and to instill that knowledge into our youth through this resource. And Jody, you are amazing. You're the bridge that made this all possible. That
the telescope.
you're the telescope that brought us all together. Like you were the beacon, like that sent out your energy, and we grabbed it and we hung on, and we're still hanging on, and we'll keep hanging on. And it's just been amazing to be part of this, and we're going to continue to be part of this. And if anybody's traveling, safe travels. Gachimi-wech, I want to say Gachimi-wech to everybody that took their time to come and join us with this. And hopefully we get to see you very soon in person rather than this Zoom stuff, this space stuff. And I want to say Gachimi-wech, and I want to say safe travels, and thank you again for having us. Miigwech. Well,
Thank you very much, Doug and Kathy. That's so amazing. It's so beautiful to know that you're here, and the energy that you bring as well. It's just when you guys are there, you just light up the whole everything, every single time. And I'll never forget that time when we're in the restaurant, and no, they didn't want to feed you, Doug. I don't know why.
No.
They didn't want to feed you.
I know.
That was
I almost took your plate, almost got food out of your plate that time.
I know. I almost
Your
gave you
plate
some.
was like this.
I know. Oh, Chimigwech, thank you very much.
Miigwech.
Okay, so we're gonna move right along. By the way, those are really amazing people, and they're also leaders, and they do a lot for everything. So it's just such a great honor to have them here. The next person that we're gonna bring doesn't actually live too far from them, and we have a good friend of mine who is amazing. Years ago, she sent me some old beads. She says, I don't know if you need these or not, but they're old, and I'm not going to use them. You can have them. And she sent me a bunch of these old beads. And Sandra, I still have them in a special spot. And Sandra also, just by design, gave me and Shannon a frying pan. We kind of stole it by accident. We were smoking fish in Onigaming, and we were packing up to leave, and her frying pan ended up in my truck as we were packing up to go. And I actually used that to fry my eggs this morning, Sandra. So, and there's a bigger story behind it that's really beautiful. But thank you to you and your mother for that beautiful frying pan. And Sandra, take it away. You're also an inspiration. Sandra is a very gifted person. She's a very spiritual person. And it's her energy, it's her love, it's her compassion for the people in the lands and waters that makes it so special that she's here. So Sandra, you welcome to the sky. You're on next.
Oh, bonjour. Thank you for that nice introduction. Bonjour, Manitou Mr. Timindigo, Menwe, Gneashi Indigo, Gijigo, Quendigo, Awasa Sindotam, Onigming Donji. So those are the three names that I carry, and that's part of my identity. And that's the whole thing about the resources that I believe brings to the students. And it comes in different ways. And part of that, learning about the star knowledge out there, it's such exciting times. And when we look at that, we look at a bigger world view of things. We send our children to these schools, I always say that, into these rectangular buildings, and they have to learn a certain way, they have to speak a certain way. And it's so different from the way we learn as Anishinaabe people, as indigenous people. And it's completely different. It's almost the exact opposite. And I myself, I'm an educator. I'm also on a Kobichugan, which is a great grandmother. So with that, those roles, being a Kukam, also being a grandmother, I have those roles there, and they come with lots of responsibilities, and they also come with knowledge. And a lot of that didn't come to me by sitting in that rectangular building and learning a different way. It came to me through sitting on the earth. It came through by dreams. It came through fasting. It came through songs. It came through stories that I heard. And what, we have a beautiful roundhouse in our community. So as a teacher, that's how I would teach my students. I would say, we're going to go to this building. It's the roundhouse. There's a certain way you conduct yourself in there. There's a certain way you got to listen. There's a certain way you got to speak. And there's a certain way you have to behave in there. In the schooling where we're in right now, in that rectangular building, I said, we sit in a classroom with chairs and rows and stuff like that, or in, different seating arrangements. And we can ask that teacher many questions and put up her hand, and we can even cut them off and, ask questions like that. But when we go to the roundhouse, it's a totally different way of learning and listening. And when you're there, you're listening to that elder speaker because they're teaching you. And this is where we can't interrupt. We got to use more of our ears and our eyes when we're learning there, and less of the mouth. And so I want to give them, that was just an example, because I want to give the students tools to walk, these two paths. And in these two paths, they're going to learn a lot of things about themselves, some things that might not be true, especially in, like today's world with technology and the things out there that they tell us stories about us. So now we're in a time and age where we are telling our own stories, and we can tell them now through technology. And this is where it's very exciting. When I first seen that little cartoon character of Isaac, I thought that was so cute. He didn't blink though, or couldn't close his eyes or something. Anyway, I showed that to my students, my grade 3 students, and they really loved it. Then I showed them the character that they made of me. And you know what they said? The students, they're saying, "Miigwech, thank you for that." And so I was really grateful that they said that. And I teach grade 3 students. And so I showed them the resources. I just wanted to test it on them. I showed them the team members on that site. So they've seen the pictures we have there. So they asked me, they said, "Is that your family?" And I said, "Yeah, I guess they're my family." So I told them where everybody was at and where they lived. And so right away, they were so interested in Daniela and Carlos. That's who they were interested in. They said, "NASA?" And they thought, "Oh, well, can you call them and zoom in with them? Because they think you're in space right now." So anyway, that's what they're saying. Can you call them so they can join us? We have some questions for them, what it's like to work in that. And they think you're astronauts, so they have lots of questions for you. So so what I enjoy about this is, a long time ago when I had a choice, I decided, like after teaching for, I think it was like 7 years in the and what the Ontario Ministry of Education set out to what a teacher should be teaching. And I did that for 7 years, and I found that it wasn't making a difference with my students. So I thought there's got to be another way. So that's when I started going to the roundhouse myself, and I use that as my way of learning. And that's where I learned about, all these legends that we have up there in there are star formations for every single legend up there. And so they tell us about us, our identity. And then listening to them, I started bringing it home more to me inside here. And understanding that those roles of that matriarch and understanding that role of that kukum. Like I was there when my grandchildren were being born, and I was there to welcome them. And, you know, I learned more about the power of that umbilical cord recently, not too long ago. And that umbilical cord is that, it's that spirit trail. That's how that little baby came through to the mother. That's how they're connected. And also looking at that umbilical cord, then my aunt taught me about the rainbow. When we see that rainbow, that's that umbilical cord that connects us from the earth here to the star world up there. And that's a reminder. And then when we look up, when we look up to the star world, there's the Milky Way there. That's the same thing. So everything is a reflection. Whatever happened up there with the legends and the star formations happens here on earth. Whatever happens in the star world and the earth happens to us as Anishinaabe, and especially Anishinaabe Kweo, because we're the same as the earth. So those are, so that's what I wanted to share. And I wanted to thank Jody. And how I met Jody was, if you look at a roundhouse, especially a Niggaming, the way it's built, it looks like a spaceship. So that's where I met Jody, in that spaceship in the roundhouse. And that was one of the times where I see cars going by and I go run over there, put on my skirt, and I go in there and I walk and I offer my tobacco. And we have these trees that take care of each, because ours is a turtle. It represents the turtle in there. So we have these, we call them Metiganabe, these tree people, and we honor them every time I go in there and I put my tobacco on. That's where I met her anyway. And I sat there and I listened. And then all of a sudden I had a dream where they told me, they said, you haven't done a water ceremony in a long time, or it was, it is a long time in the spirit world. And for them to, and I said, and I was thinking that in my dream, okay, I'll try and do one. And they were showing me that it had to be that winter in the middle of the lake, and we'd have to do a water ceremony there. And the next morning I woke up and I thought, okay, I got to do this ceremony. So I was thinking in my head where I was going to do it, when I was going to do it. And then I got my skirt, I went to the roundhouse and went back to join the people there. And when I joined them, I seen Kathy coming with her tobacco, and she said, can you do a ceremony? She said, there are some people here, our Piteg, our visitors. We want to do some kind of ceremony. I said, oh, I have one. I said, I dreamt about it last night. So we did go onto the lake, the beautiful lake here, and we did a water ceremony there. And when we were done, they asked me, and they said, well, can we interview you? That was Jody. I was saying, okay, when? She said, well, we're going to be leaving by midnight. Can you come by 11 tonight? And I was saying, so I said, okay. And they said, just keep talking. And I said, okay. And that's the way they did the video. And then when they sent it and they were completed, I cried because I didn't know they captured like a really good piece of that. So I'd like to thank Jody again for traveling in that spaceship and coming to Niggaming here. Miigwech.
Well, thank you so much, Sandra, for sharing. That's really incredible. And yes, Jody certainly is on a spaceship. She's been on a spaceship ever since I've known her. And she's absolutely incredible at what she does. And I remember maybe a decade ago, me and Jody were in the bush, and we had this really high, like this very, very tense group of young people in the forest. They were high risk. And, we ended up just sitting there looking at the stars, and like it was amazing. It was amazing. Jody is like just amazing. So our last speaker that we have, it really is just as incredible as everybody else. And his name is Carlos. And I've met Carlos, and Carlos is, in my opinion, a genius. He's a mathematical genius I don't know, Carlos, like in my mind, you are like this scientist that knows everything. And oftentimes I think Okay, what would Carlos say, or what would Carlos think? Carlos works for NASA. He's also an Indigenous knowledge keeper and has his own story, his own personal story about life that touched me deeply when I was speaking with him. My father has also met Carlos and most of the gang here, and so it's with great honor and integrity and respect that we introduce Carlos. So Carlos, come on and share with us your experiences with this resource. It's really good to see you again.
To see you as well, brother. All of you. Thank you for offering me some space to say a few words. Dana, it's always lovely to see you. All of you, Sandra, Jody, what can we say? The adulation is everywhere. And I just want to share with you the deep gratitude for offering me an opportunity to share some of the knowledge that I was offered by my grandfather, my grandparents, our ancestors in this endeavor, this vision, this spaceship that you're on, that we all got to participate, Captain. So I was given the great gift of some words so that I will share these with you from our traditions of the Yaqui peoples of the Southwest. I live further south than Dana does, so we have some relationality. But our words are connected to spirit. So we say, Ayamene, say, Wala isna hashna, Eyakwet na he, Yeke etno laya. So these are the words that represent our ways of walking, our ways of being in this universe. And a little bit about this resource for the teachers, for the educators, for the outreach folks, for anyone involved in working with Native youth, Indigenous youth, First Nations, American Indians, Alaska Natives, Indigenous peoples throughout the universe, throughout the world. We just want to share just a little spot where we can come together and actually connect the dots. There are times when we can feel a certain type of apprehension and a certain type of discomfort when we hear things that can seem a little bit different than what we were trained to believe. But I got to share with you, through this medicinal gathering of relations, we were able to cross-pollinate these stories and connect at such a deep level that it became a spiritual connection. And this is not about religiosity. This is not about a certain type of way of believing. This is about integration and relationship. So with stars, 95% of our bodies essentially is made of stars. And the spacecraft we talk about are rockets. And as you get to see in these resources, you'll get to see some rocket stuff that Jody and the rest of the team thought would be of interest and really connected to journey. So we're all on a journey together. And as we go on this journey, there are going to be times where we're going to have difficulty. There are going to be times where we're going to have love. But most of all, we're related. Siblings are always connected. We're always going to come together. Humans, we need humans. We also need these amazing creatures, these things called mountains that are our protectors. We need these stars that are our ancestors, these planets that protect us at night when we sleep. Grandmother Moon was shared. So all of these different ways of connecting are part of this resource. This resource will give you a connection to something that's a lot bigger than you could have ever imagined. So our traditional ways are to come together, share this knowledge, cross-pollinate, and to reduce down the energy when it comes down to some of the apprehensions we may feel. So with that, I will share that our youth, our Indigenous youth, they are trained in these institutions, and it's a beautiful expression of this particular way of thinking. However, we have our own tellings. We have our own engineering. We have our own science. Why don't we just bring them together in parallel? And now we have this beautiful way of seeing the world in multiple ways. This is not more work. This is a beautiful expression of life. So we offer you this opportunity to intersect and connect. So that I sound somewhat credible, my doctorate is in information science. I'm a satellite technologist. I work with a small startup where we're looking to essentially change the world through telecom systems that are not polluting the skies. That's my quote unquote research. My education work, if you will, or service is geared towards working at grassroots level with community on topics that I really don't know much about. And so I get an opportunity to meet with people and beautiful, amazing creatures like the ones that are here who have this knowledge. So this is what we're trying to do, is bring us all together to this resource. Let's share the knowledge. We have such beautiful people. You're all beautiful people that have things to share. You know, some people say, I don't know anything about science. And then when we ask them a certain question, what do you know about that? They'll say, actually, my grandfather, my grandmother, my mom taught me blah, blah, blah. I'm like, do you realize that's high level physics? That's called, for example, scattered diffusion. You know, they're like, what the heck is that? I'm like, you know how to do mathematics. Just by your sheer existence, you know how to do mathematics. So why don't we come together in this resource, learn from each other, share the beauty of you, and empower yourself with this knowledge so that when youth look at you and say, what is this about? You can say, you know, I happen to know something about that. In your traditions, you have some knowledge too. Here's what we want to do. Let's come together and share this knowledge so that we take away the power dynamics and we're truly united as brothers and sisters, grandmothers and grandfathers, cousins, beloveds and friends, and all of these words that we give. We're all connected. We're all connected to the stars, to the planets, and the cosmos. And today is a celebration of this hard work this amazing woman, Jody Williams, undertook. She's got an amazing story. All these children and a spouse and a teacher and you know, resource manager and grant maker. And she's an amazing, amazing person. So with deep gratitude from my heart to yours. And for all of those that are out there, we just appreciate this person and everyone involved. So with that, I will just say one more thing and then I will finish. There's a teaching that I was taught a long time ago by an elder. This elder said to me, you know, one of the greatest gifts that you're given is that you're aging one day at a time. And with each day and each moment that passes, your job, your duty is to love even more. So with that, let's bring the love together with each other. Let's combine ourselves in this way so that one day together we can embrace in a warm blanket and connect each other to the truth, which is the reality of our love and our shared vision and our journey. Hope. Thank you.
Wow. I'm going to say that everybody needs a Carlos. Everybody needs a Carlos. There's no question. The energy, the enthusiasm, the knowledge, but also the message of uniting and, you know, putting each other's medicine together to build something beautiful for the young people, to inspire them, to uplift them so that they can have a beautiful life. That's what this is all about, folks. And so it's, you know, Carlos, you're just an incredible person. And we thank you so much for being here. You know, years ago, my grandfather used to take me out into the bush. And I used to help him do certain things. I used to have to work for him all the time. I never got paid, but I got paid with stories. And he used to say, you know, let's go to Quikwigjuang. And we used to go to this part of the lake, and the stars would just open up there for some reason. And we'd look up into the sky, and there hanging above us would be a beautiful Masanabigan, a beautiful picture of stars. And he would talk about those stars. And he'd say, you know, that's where we come from. We come from Ishpeming. And, you know, as we're there, we decide to come here. We're offered the chance to come here to Earth. And as we come here, we enter through 4 sacred powers. And then as we enter through those 4 sacred powers of fire and water, air, and then earth, you know, we go through that sacred hoop of life and we find ourselves in a very spiritual lodge here on earth. And as we live our life through this lodge, the stars are above us. And the stars are there to guide us in this world here. And that when we sing our songs down here, our ancestors are singing their songs up there. When we're feasting here, they're feasting up there. And that all of those sacred pictures that are hanging in the sky, to remind us of our original instructions on how to live here They used to call that a map, a very sacred map in the sky, because it gives us, you know, the path on how to live here. And so when we started to put this resource together, of course, it was Jody. Jody's a workhorse. You know what? I'm thoroughly convinced that there's going to be a constellation of Jody, you know, in 100 years. There'll be a sacred picture of Jody hanging in the sky. Because she just does that much, and you have no idea. And when we started to put this resource together, Jody was like, okay, I need you for this, I need you for that, and you got to come, you got to do this thing. And I'm like, okay. And you know, she had like green screens and like photographers and like video people, and she'd have these star gatherings and all this. Like, she's just like this incredible ball of electrons, right? And she just and that's the gift of Jody. She just makes you feel like you're so important. And so, you know, working on this resource was such an honor, and it was such a pleasure. And the thing about it is, folks, it's alive, meaning that this isn't done. We're going to keep adding on to it as time goes on. We're going to keep feeding it. You know, we're going to have Dana plug in some more of her great stuff, you know, and maybe even Tina one day. We need to get Tina on there. You know, Tina is an incredible person. And so Tina and Tessa are going to be moderating the questions, because we're going to have some questions after. But right now, let's take a look at what we're actually talking about. And so you've met the people, you've met the superstars, but now let's take a closer look at the resource itself. So at this time, I'm going to hand everything over to future constellation person Jody Williams, and she's going to guide us through the technical parts of the resource. Chimigwich.
Okay, all right. I was not expecting all these accolades, so thank you, everyone. My cheeks are like, they're sore from smiling so much, and this is like just the beautiful energy that these people, I'm sure everybody watching is just appreciating right now, because well, yeah, you get why. It's just amazing. So I am going to hang on a second, let me just get my bearings here. Okay, so I'm going to give you a walk through this resource, and hopefully and just go through some of the goodies in here that we've all been talking about. So this actually is a part 3 of a resource that Isaac and I started years ago, and it all started with a story. And it's interesting because this is many years ago with this story, and you know, lately we've been talking again a lot of focus around story. And so I think it's so important that, you know, as educators, if you're a teacher listening, that we really look for opportunities for kids to think about their own stories, or how they can share knowledge through story. Story is so important. And yet in our Western education systems, we've kind of taken away that focus. And we talk a little bit about this in the resource as well, in the educator section, impacts of colonialism on the notion of story. And I'll get to that in a minute. But so this is it, lessons from Earth and Beyond.ca. And you'll notice here, so the first iteration actually started with what we called Lessons from the Earth, and it's based on the Fisher story as told by Isaac. And when you click on this, which we're not going to get into today, but there's a whole universe of information and beautiful lessons connected to this really powerful story. And we also redid the story in an animation form, because this is geared for younger students. Not to say, ironically, I come from a secondary background, so this actually can be used in secondary as well. But the focus to start was on elementary students, that focus there. And I'm just wondering, maybe if, I know there's Tina's helping out on the YouTube side. Tina, if you can pop into the chat box the web link for folks there, and then maybe Tisa or Isaac, if you want to pop in the website in the Facebook Live, for those folks listening in over there, that would be amazing. So on this front page, I'm going to click on Lessons from Beyond and dive in. So here we go. So here's our menu, and if we just kind of start from the beginning here, although it does say we did start kind of with a focus on grades 6 to 8. However, it is good for much more outside of grades 6 to 8. We just had this as our target focus area to start with. And also I should mention that this collaboration was part of another big initiative through the organization that's called the First Nations, Métis and Inuit Education Association of Ontario. And through that, we have been leading a community practice in the area of Indigenous knowledge and mathematics. And so there's a strong focus on mathematics in this resource, but I'm sure you could easily see the connections to any subject area and how useful it is across grades and curriculum. So this is actually, kind of our first, there's mentions about these star gatherings. And so this one here is, I would encourage people to watch this documentary. It has all of the collaborators here that you met tonight, as well as Indigenous youth. And this was right before COVID. So, we were actually planning a second gathering, and it was just kind of in that beginning stages where we were building these amazing relationships, and then COVID. And so we've been meeting over Zoom, but the power of technology, we're making use of our ability to still connect and to share out even more broadly. So also here we have an educator site and a student site. So I'm going to go into the educator site first. And so what we try to do as well through this project is really address and have people considering the impacts of colonialism and how our current public education system is still very much a tool being used to uphold the goals of colonialism. So if you think about those, what colonialism, and it's still ongoing, and what the implications are, it's to have this hierarchy of knowledge where we have valued and placed importance on one set of knowledge systems in school. In this case, it's the Western science knowledge system, and we've devalued everything else. And so this is where I kind of come back to this notion of story. So when we say, Indigenous stories, oftentimes it's associated with, lore or myths and legends or fairy tales. And so there's this connotation that it's somehow very simplistic and not very sophisticated. And so what we're trying to do in this resource is dispel those myths and to have people recognize that Indigenous knowledge systems are incredibly diverse, incredibly sophisticated, and has so much importance and gifts to the world. And we're lucky that that they're still here, because colonialism has been very, very effective in wiping out and almost making extinct languages. The pharmacology knowledge that's in our plants and our connections that have been really severed because of this great disruption that's taken place and is still going on. If you think about how our education system is operates. And so we've put together these little pieces. So here is a video of Wilfred talking about how story in how we use it in this resource it's about knowledge transference. It could have significant information like geographic information, scientific information, mathematical information. So it's not just myths, lores, and legends. And the other thing too is that it's an invitation to think, reconsider, and bring back our connection to the universe, to the outside, to the sky, all of these things. We are so deeply connected And yet so many of us, because again, of colonization and how our society is operating, are really suffering a great disconnect. And, you know, if we can, regardless of who you are or where you come from, everybody, you know, comes from a place, a land, a people. And so it's also an invitation to go back to where your roots are, where you come from, and think about what are those stories, what are those things that allow you to make those connections back to your own personal self, to your own identity. And so I'm gonna click on this. It'll open up in another tab. And then I'm gonna come back to it because that's the big kind of meat and potatoes for teacher stuff. And then there's other links to other resources as well. And now I'm gonna hop over to the student page. So this is actually, so we designed this to be somewhat self-guided. And you see here, this little avatar here is actually, this is actually Shannon Paul, who couldn't be here tonight. This is who she is. And she guides the learning journey throughout this website. And she talks about here about the significance of having a name. And then we've also linked in other videos that we've had from our first iteration with other people that talk about related ideas. And so we're gonna just scroll down here. So here's all the contributors. And these are really, again, I would recommend like take the time and listen to each person, kind of like how they shared here tonight. You got a little glimpse of that. So everybody has this beautiful piece that they share and bring forward. And then what we were thinking about is how do we engage kids and make this fun and interesting? So we decided to create these little avatars and animations throughout the video, throughout the rest of the resource here. So all of the contributors you see are now these little animations. And then and then this is where we start. So here's Sandra's animation that Sandra was talking about before. I just love it. They're so cute. And so and Sandra starts out by bringing in this introduction, right? So this consideration and the power of story and the importance that story holds and how that is relevant to everyone. Everybody has a story. Everybody is looking to connect their identity. So now the resource itself has three kind of main sections. So this first one, We Come from the Stars, is kind of like, if you think about in education, we call it a provocation. So it's like a big provocation. It's to kind of get the preparation for learning into some of the mathematical activities we have linked in here. So here we have Doug as an animation and just getting that starting idea about We Come from the Stars. And then we also have these interactive classrooms, I guess you could call them, spaces, where you can click on the space and you can hear different things. And I'm just going to give you an example right here.
A long time ago, our people were given certain instructions on how to live here on Earth. They believed that our people come from the stars and that we were lowered down here. And that's actually what our word for Anishinaabe, what it means, being lowered down.
And then it just goes on into some, you click on this galaxy. Now this one here is probably one of our longest animations. And just on a little side point. So we do try and keep any video and animation around the 5-minute-ish mark because we know attention spans these days. So this one is like got a lot of information in it. It's just really incredible. And it's 18 minutes long. So we tested it out with some kids who have like very little attention span and they were glued the whole time. So I was like, okay, we know this is good. And so this is little sample of what this is about. So here's Daniela, who you met from NASA, and she talks about the life cycle of a star. And this actually was the inspiration for how this kind of came together. Was when we were first talking, and we were sharing these ideas. This idea of Anishinaabe meaning to be lowered down from, like to come from the stars. And then we had these other tellings that were very similar. And then we have this Western science story that also talks about this notion of when a star lives, is doing its thing, and then it comes to the end of its life cycle and it blows up. It spits out all of its elements that it's been creating in its lifetime. And when it spits them all out, eventually over time, heat and gravity, things come together, new stars are formed, planets are formed, life emerges. And so we literally have all of these, stories, all of these tellings that say the exact same thing. We come from the stars. So that kind of was the inspiration, what kind of kickstarted this off. And this idea of what if we could bring multiple knowledge systems together to come into dialogue, to talk with each other, and to see what new creative ideas could come out of that. And that's really what we're hoping as you, if you're going to interact with this resource and learn about the things that are presented here. And so again, this is another little interactive classroom that, click on the window, and then it brings you to this other more animations and things like that. So down here, we have one of our other contributors who couldn't be here with us tonight, Dea Hande, who's from Six Nations of the Grand. This is a really beautiful video that talks about how in the Ganyagahaga or Mohawk language, that the name for star is the same, has the same reference or name to who we are, meaning like the essence of who we are, or our spirit is has the same name as stars. Like that just is, it to me is just so beautiful and so powerful that really even, why the language is so important and how it also provides that deeper connection and understanding. So then we kind of start to get into the mathematics, because when you start to look out in the natural world, there's just heaps of mathematics going on in the natural world, whether it's fractals or concentric circles and things like that. And then also are these links to, we work with, in the Math Knowledge Network that we're connected with, we work with Dr. George Gadonitas, who does all this really incredible work on coding. So we've linked it into his. And then we get into the next section. So patterns in the night sky. So this is where we start to really get into making links into the curriculum and doing some further learning. So we have a little video with Kevin, the math guy, who talks about patterns and makes those connections.
Hi, my name's Kevin. And today, we're going to talk about patterns.
You get the sense of that. And really drawing this understanding around the fact that, when we think about mathematics or science, it's really just being able to observe something over a long period of time and studying it enough to then be able to make predictions about it. And so if you think about Indigenous knowledge systems, that's the essence of those two, is being in direct relation with the natural environment and knowing it so intimately that you can make predictions and knowing what to expect or what's happening. So then we have in here just lots of like activities and really cool things you can do, because although it's a digital resource, which means you're on the computer with it, but we hope that it inspires a curiosity to go outside and look up and see if you can look at those stars in the same way that they're being presented here. We also talk about how there's more than one way to look at a constellation. So I'm just going to jump over here now into the teacher guide. So this is the teacher-y stuff that teachers love to have a guide. So I'm just going to scroll down here really quickly to get into, this is all the stuff that's on the website that you've already seen. So what we've provided for Ontario, anyway, we have a new math curriculum. So we have in here links that connect into that new math curriculum and where the activities align. Specifically in this first iteration, it's grades 6, 7, 8. As we're working on more, our next focus is going to be on primary grades and then secondary grades. So as mentioned, we're forever building on. And then we get into, I'm just going to scroll down. So again, that's that overview I talked about on the website. We come from the stars. I just showed that. Patterns in the night sky. That's where we're at right now. The technology of travel and journey. So that's where we get into Dr. Juan Carlos Chavez. We get into looking at canoe and rocketry and the engineering design process and how they're similar. And then we have a little bit on Grandmother Moon, but that part is still being built out. So there's a little bit there. And then what I want to just show you here in these, let me scroll into, so we want to get to, here we go. So in here, because this is teachers like this kind of stuff, you click on this link and it'll bring you to these little smaller lessons that are specifically connected to these concepts. So in here, we're going to focus in on spatial sense in the math curriculum, which is measurement, location, and movement. These are just demonstrating where those curriculum connections are explicitly tied in with the new curriculum, math curriculum. So we're looking at lesson 1, introducing the night sky. So it walks through, gives you some, prior to watching the videos, you may wish to have a class discussion on some of these ideas. And then we've also created slide decks for you to use in your classroom. So let's say I'm a grade 6 teacher. I could use this right in my classroom just as is, talking about patterns in the night sky. So, first watch the videos in this section. After we've done that, we come to this next section and you can say to your students, show them this picture. What do you see? What do you wonder? What do you see now? Can you see any shapes? And hopefully as you can see where we're going with this is then we get into the conversation around, you can start to make these patterns and see these shapes emerging, which we call constellations. And of course, in our night sky, the big prominent one is this one right here, which we refer to often as the Big Dipper, and maybe sometime in Ursa Major, and maybe sometimes the Great Bear. But what we're trying to do here is also show that there are many, many other names and associations with this grouping of stars. So for example, you could ask students, can you find the Big Dipper on this Ojibwe star map? And if you click here, you'll notice it's right here. And for one example, in Ojibwe is in reference to the Fisher story. And if you remember, I mentioned our first iteration of this huge resource is Lessons from the Earth, and it's all around this Fisher story. So this is the little video here that you can click back to in reference and watch it again. And then the next one is using this Cree star map, credit to Wilfred Buck. And if you click on this one here, you'll notice here again is another way of grouping those stars, the Big Dipper stars. And there's actually in this one, there's several Cree stories, and there's a link to one told by Wilfred Buck as well. And so so this idea of presenting to students that there are many, many ways to see the night sky and have these important understandings. So that's one of those lessons. So if we go back here, and then, so the next one, it goes on, lesson 2, navigating the night sky. So again, there's a slide deck that accompanies that, and these lessons that are done for you to start to get into some of the mathematics as well around that. So I'm going to go back over to the website now, because that's just to give you a little glimpse of of these teacher guides. Here's another example of making a star clock. So again, using those prominent stars out that you see, the Big Dipper and Cassiopeia, and the North Star, you can actually, and then there's another activity we have in here, telling time using the Big Dipper. It's pretty amazing. So these are things that kids can actually go and look up and try out and see if they can do that. And then next we have that other section, the technology of travel. We have this really beautiful story that Wilfred tells. So this is Wilfred in an animation form that he talks about in connection with a canoe. And then we get into this idea of journey and how the engineering design process is just, in the canoe. And we also have Hohepa talking about the significance of the canoe to the Maori, their waka, and how the similarities are. And then Carlos kind of goes into more details around the engineering design process as it relates to rocketry and draws those similarities. And then there's an activity in there that kids can do to experiment as well, which gets them to go through that, the design process of trying something out, revising, coming up with new ideas as well. So, and then I mentioned we had the last section, which is still kind of in its infancy. There's a few things in here that we have. And again, it's just right now at a point to look at the importance of, the similarities that we hear about these stories, and how does this help weave into a greater narrative about our connection and our place in the universe. And again, ultimately, it's hoping to inspire kids to think about this incredible place that we live on, how blessed we are to live in this beautiful land and have these beautiful stars to look up at night. And hopefully through that inspiration, kids will, have that reconnection because, we want kids to fall in love again with this beautiful earth. Because if you're in love with the earth, then you're going to really fight to protect it. And we really need a lot of help with land defending and water protection and all of those things when we think about what the future has to hold for all of us. So that's the overview of this incredible collaboration. I hope that you find it interesting and you check it out. And we are working on a VR component, actually, that we will be linking up here into the website as well. So that's coming soon too. So that's all I have. Back over to you, Isaac. You're on mute, by the way.
There, I'm back. And I will say exactly what I just said. That was amazing. And it was so nice to be able to see all of the work like in one spot. It's easy to access. It's just plump full of stuff. It's like you're going into the forest and you're just like, there's so much stuff in the forest that you can pick and choose from. And that's how this resource is. And so there's just a wealth of information that took, quite a long time to compile. Lots of traveling, lots of gatherings, lots of things like that. And so it's really a blessing to be able to see all of it like this. And we also recognize too that this is a gateway or a stairwell to actually get kids outside and off the computer and gazing at the stars. And so we recognize that this is a gateway to get people outside and away from the computer, which is, I guess, the goal of humanity right now. And also I wanted to mention too that we're definitely going to be working on language resources, because I truly believe that as an Anishinaabe, all of the resources that we make, we have to include the language. We have we have an ethical and moral responsibility to make sure that the language is attached and included, because that's what the elders want. Abdek Wibiskabi and Anishinaabe Adswan Nikia. You know, that we have to, the elders want us to take this knowledge, and it can't happen without the language. And so language is a really big part of all of this. And so language resources will be attached to this as well. It just, you can't talk about stars and not have the language. And so it's growing and it's amazing. And so again, Jody Williams, I can't say enough about her, even though everybody's been talking about her all night. I'm just going to give her one good blast of goodness. She has spent, this is years in the making. This is years in the making of just networking, meeting people, talking, inspiring people, and just getting people infected with this notion of creating something beautiful for young people. And she's actually done a really amazing job. A lot of the technical support that you see on here was done by Jody and her technicians. And so Jody is like the one that's, you know, and just like going crazy on the computer. And she'll be the one that says, okay, I need you here. And we'll be the ones that'll sit there and say, you know, tell a story or something, you know, and just kind of look around. But Jody's like the one that's like getting everything done. So Jody, congratulations on such a beautiful resource. We have Tessa and Tina. Now, Tessa, I've met a couple times, incredible person, really just a nice hearted person. And, you know, has always been involved with helping her people, always been involved with trying to make a difference. And, you know, she has a very good glow about her. And, you know, we're honored to have Tessa Fiddler with us. She's super smart and super incredible. And we also have Tina, who I've met several times as well. And Tina's like you just want to grab Tina and like put her in your pocket. And just, you know, just because, you know, she's like a little ball of medicine. You just want to put her in your pocket. And I don't know what for. Tina, I don't want to, I'm going to let you, like, we'd let you out. You know, you would be released. But she has such a great energy about her. You just can't help but just want to put her in your pocket. So at this time, we're gonna take questions. And this is your time. And Tina and Tessa are going to moderate the question part of things. And so this is the time when you can ask about, you know, how do we do this? All the questions that you might have. I don't know what they are, but this is the time to ask them. Tina and Tessa are gonna guide you through that. So Tina and Tessa, take it away, and we will see you when we're done with the question and answer period.
So I do have a question here on YouTube. I have to say thank you, Isaac. Every time I hear you speak, every time I'm around you, my cheeks hurt because I can't help but smile. So that's a huge compliment when you feel what you said regarding me, because I feel exactly the same way about you. We all need an Isaac in our lives. I truly believe that, because we would be so much happier if we all had an Isaac in our lives. So we do have a question here on YouTube. And the question is, will you or do you have resources about light pollution?
Ooh.
That's a really good question. You know what? Actually, we do not. But I love the idea of talking about light and how it can be pollution, how it affects the night sky. I remember I was starting on an idea of marking out constellations using buildings in the cities as a way to identify stories and legend and you know, truths about the sky, because light pollution plays such a big factor in the cities. I think that's a great thing. Jody, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a possibility. You know what, it made me think about, okay, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here, but so in the Fisher story, if you haven't watched it, you should really watch that story. In in there, it talks about the birds when they are taken up, and when they're taken away, that's when winter comes and the winter maker blows its icy breath, and it's not until the songbirds are rescued and come back that they sing their songs, they cast medicine in spring, and it pushes back the winter. And so I was sitting at this, I forget where I was, but it was a documentary was being played on songbirds and the disappearance of songbirds and the interruption of their migration patterns because of light pollution. And also because of the amount of death that occurs when they smack into buildings in big cities like Toronto and such. And they had, in this research that had been done, they had noticed that there was these direct linkages to the effects on climate and the number of songbirds. And I immediately thought of that Fisher story and that idea of, and remember how I said story? It's not just little hokey pokey, like, oh, that's really cute to hear sitting around a fire. No, those things have really important messages and information in them. So if we think about, the story and how, it's the winter maker takes away the birds and it changes the climate. We're seeing this, right? With the science also telling that same story. So not a direct answer in terms of like, will there be resources about light pollution, but certainly the availability is there, or the option is there. And what I hope that teachers do with the content that is here is draw inspiration and look for further connections out to explore those things that maybe there's not a direct piece of information that's shared in the resource, but it causes you to ask questions in other places like this.
There was a question that was posed earlier, and I'm not sure we can answer it right now, but it's something, I guess, for the FNMI, EAO, and all folks to consider. But the question was, as children of the stars, what are your cultural teachings about how to honor and respect the sacred union between sun and moon, and how to respect the time of lunar and solar eclipse?
Well, I think that's a really good question. And I think that it's a loaded question where there's a whole belief system and a whole way of life that's encompassed into that. And so that's part of what this resource is really about. It's about to get people engaged into the stars and disengaged from colonialism, from all of those other systems that detach us from this way of life that would lead us to all of these other celebrations that need to happen. And so, good question. Don't know how to answer it other than that. But those questions are important because that's what this is all about. It's asking those big questions, because I think all of us have those big questions. How are we able to do that? And I think that collectively, when we come together in a good way and we share our knowledge, we find pathways to do that. And so again, unite, build your people up, keep looking up at the stars, get outside, and that answer to the answer to that question will be revealed in time. Next question. Really deadly question.
I don't have any more questions on Facebook, but many words of gratitude and amazement. Like, people are just so impressed with the resource and grateful for the opportunity to use it.
Well, that's
Same
great.
on this end. Oh, sorry. I'm just going to say the same thing on YouTube. We don't have any more questions because I think at this time, people are probably just taking the opportunity to absorb, right? All the amazing energy from today's session and from the amazing contributors. So there is lots of wonderful words of gratitude and appreciation from everyone on YouTube. And I'm sure the questions will come later. And perhaps Isaac and Jody, you can share if people do have questions, who they can contact if they do have questions further.
Yeah, that's a really good question, is what happens when you have questions? How do you get answers? And so I guess there's many different ways that you can find, like as you go into the resource, there's going to be places where you can, our emails are going to be on there. There's going to be places where you can, especially about how to use the resource, because that's important. Some of the bigger, larger questions, go speak to your elders, go speak to your knowledge keepers, and, do that self-discovery, do that work on the ground about those bigger questions, because that's the fun thing about life, is getting out there and learning all of those things. I remember being young and being in like South Dakota and looking at the stars with these Lakota medicine people. And it was such a beautiful experience. And so sometimes, you just got to get out there and just do it, but for more technical questions, I can't help you. There is no way I can help you, but Jody can. Jody is the creator of this resource. She knows all of the mechanics of how this thing works. And so Jody, how do they get a hold of you? You don't
you can
1,000 emails, but
I know. Yeah, just remember, I'm slow to respond. Yeah, so maybe if Tisa and Tina, if you want to pop into the chat boxes, info@fnmieao.com. I know it's a bit of an alphabet of a acronym, FNMIEAO. So that's First Nations Métis Inuit Education Association of Ontario. And shout out to Tisa and Tina, who do a lot of behind the scenes work as well, because that organization, we're all volunteers on it, and we have a beautiful council of elders now as well. You met some of them tonight that have been part of this work, and so that organization is really there to help guide educators into good places and spaces. And in fact, actually, since we're on the topic, that organization just launched a new, changed over domain. So we have a new website, and there's a new resource section with some new goodies. And Tisa and I are actually going to be next week through the Ontario Teachers Federation webinar series. We're actually going to be giving a little show and share on the new resources coming out from that. So there's this one, plus a whole suite of other goodies as well, that we've been working on for a good year now that are going to be shared out. And again, we have a video that's been created by members of our Elders Advisory Council on there, as well as other knowledge holders and incredible people such as Isaac. You'll catch him on that video. And we did that and it's called A Message to Teachers. And it really is, all kinds of people from across Ontario basically saying the same thing about what we want to see happening in education with respect to Indigenous education and how to do it correctly without, perpetuating more harms or appropriation that unfortunately is still very much happening. So we're hoping that all of these pieces, all of these resources will help guide that process. And so kids have better experiences in education than they've had up to this point. So that's the email, and thank you and the website there. And I guess Isaac, some closing words.
Okay, well, thank you very much again. And we want to thank everybody for tuning in, for being a part. It's 2 hours is a long gig. That's a lot. That's like a movie in some. So we thank you for being patient as everybody guided you through their experiences and their knowledge. And, because without you, this resource doesn't mean anything. It's just in space. And so, we thank you so much for being here and to be a part of this. And remember that, this is really a gateway to like having those real life experiences. And so I think that's what everybody is talking about is how do we have real life learning experiences? And that this is something that pushes us out the door and to have those experiences and to learn more. Once you dive into this resource, you're just it's just, you can't help but want to learn more. It's like reading a book halfway, and then you're like, this can't end. Like, where's the other half? You know, because when you're talking about the star and the skies and the moon and all of these things, it just goes on forever and ever, and you can never ever not stop learning about it once you're in it. And so we want to thank you for taking the time. We send special blessings to all of you. Be safe. COVID is a reality for our people. And so I know where I am, it's not good here. But, we send our hearts and our prayers out to all of those that have been affected by COVID, especially our elders. And, let's lift each other up. Let's build each other up, because we got one shot. We're in climate change. And so the idea of working together, building bridges and sharing information is how we're going to effectively come together and make the changes that are necessary for the earth. And why this resource is so important is because it connects us to the ecology. And star knowledge does that. All of the star knowledge talks about how to live here on Earth. And that's the whole point of this whole thing, is to get people closer to the Earth. And so with that, we thank all of you. And until next time, be safe. Try to be as happy as you can. Don't be grumpy just because it's Christmas time. And we'll talk to you soon. So with that, Bamapi Gwabnanim, and we will talk to you soon. Miigwech.